Students, my name is Vishnu Prasad, Assistant Professor, Mechanical Department, BITM College. Okay, so I am going to explain about the transmission system of Module 2 in an automotive engineering subject. So already Shekhar sir has already taken a and explained you how the clutch is going to perform and what are the different types of clutches. So the continuation part of this module 2 is next is gearboxes. So what is gearbox, what is the necessity, and what are the different types of gearbox I'm going to explain you. So first, so what is the necessity of the gearbox? So the gearbox is mainly used to vary the speed according to the requirement. Okay, suppose if we have a variation of the resistance such as wind resistance, gradient resistance, and other resistance like road conditions or a tire frictions, so we have to change the gears and vary the speed of the moving vehicle. So this can be achieved only by changing the gears. Okay, so the gears can be changed either by manually or automatically. So in the manual transmission, where we have a gear lever, manually we are going to operate it and change the gears by operating the clutch and simultaneously a gear lever. So in case of automatic transmission, so only with the help of the accelerator, automatically the speed can be varied. So now coming to the different types of gearboxes. So the first, the figure what we are seeing here above is a sliding mesh gearbox. So in sliding mesh gearbox, we have a clutch shaft or the input shaft. So this shaft will be directly connected to the crankshaft. Okay, and we have a lay shaft and we have a main shaft. So we have number of gear wheels that are fixed permanently on the lay shaft, and the gear wheels according to the required speed which we are going to come into contact with the lay shaft, which are fixed on the splined shaft. The splined shaft is nothing but the gear wheels can be moved either to the left or to the right depending upon the required speed. So now we can see here the clutch shaft or the input shaft is directly connected to the one of the gear wheel on the lay shaft. Okay, so on the lay shaft we have four gear wheels, so that is according to the required speed, and one gear wheel, nothing but idle gear, is attached to the last gear wheel. Okay, and there are two gear wheels which are fixed on the spline shaft. Suppose if you want to select the first speed, we have to move the first gear which is present on the main shaft towards the left side. So when the first gear is spline towards the left side, we are going to get the first speed, means the speed will be low. And when the same gear wheel which is provided on the main shaft is moved towards the right, it comes in contact with the idle gear, so that we are going to get the reverse speed. Okay, so this is how we are going to achieve the speed, either first speed or the reverse speed, with the help of the first and reverse gear which is provided on the main shaft, splined main shaft. It is also called as an output shaft. So similarly, we have one more gear wheel which is provided on the main shaft or the spline shaft. So on the left side we can see it. So when this gear wheel is moved towards the right, we are going to get the second speed. Okay, or when the same second gear is moved towards the left side spline wheel, so we are going to get the third speed or top speed. So this is how the sliding mesh gearbox works. Why it is called sliding mesh gearbox means the gear wheels which are provided on the main shaft will be slided. So it is called as the sliding mesh gearbox. So this is one of the oldest type of gearbox which is presently not used in all the vehicles. So coming to the next type of gearbox, that is called as the constant mesh gearbox. So you can see here the clutch shaft which is connected to the clutch gear, and that gear is connected to the another gear wheel which is provided on the lay shaft. Unless like gear wheels which are not in direct contact with the main shaft and the lay shaft, all the gear wheels are not contact in case of sliding mesh gearbox. In the constant mesh gearbox, all the gear wheels which are present on the spline shaft are directly in contact with the gear wheels present on the constant mesh gearbox. So the gear wheels which are provided on the constant in the spline shaft in the main shaft are freely to rotate. Okay, and whatever the speed we are going to get from the clutch gear, the same gear speed will be transferred to the lay shaft, and from here it will be transferred to the splined main shaft with the help of a clutch called as a double D clutch, sliding dog clutch it is called as. So to achieve the required speed, we have here two dog clutches. So we can see here on the above, on the right side we have one double D dog clutch. When this double D clutch is moved towards the left on the main shaft or the splined main shaft, so it comes in contact with the low gear. Okay, so that low gear is going to get the speed from the lay shaft, so we are going to get the low speed. So similarly, when you operate the clutch and shift the dog clutch toward the right side, we are going to get the reverse gear. So this is how the reverse gear and the low gear is obtained. So suppose if you want to go for the second gear and the third gear, the double D clutch which is present on the left side on the figure, when you move this double D clutch towards the right side on the splined main shaft, we are going to get the second gear speed. Okay, and the speed is obtained from the lay shaft to the second gear wheel which is provided on the main shaft. And if you want to go for the high speed, the same dog clutch, sliding dog clutch will be moved towards the left side and made in contact with the direct clutch gear. So we are going to get the direct speed or the top speed. So since all the gear wheels on the main shaft and all the gear wheels on the lay shaft are in directly contact all the times, so it is called as the constant mesh gearbox. So here the difference between the sliding mesh gearbox and the constant mesh gearbox is, in case of sliding mesh gearbox, the gear wheels were slided and we are going to achieve the required speed, whereas in the constant mesh gearbox, the double D clutch dog D clutch is slided on the splined main shaft and the required speed is obtained. Okay, so this is about this constant mesh gearbox. Okay, so next I'm going to explain about synchronous mesh gearbox. So you can see here, this is called as the synchronous mesh gearbox. Almost all the vehicles are using, most of the vehicles, high speed vehicles are using this type of gearbox. In the synchronous mesh gearbox, what I mean by synchronous mesh means the speed is synchronized by moving the frictional surfaces and made into contact with the gear wheels, so that the speed is synchronized and the required speed is achieved. So this eliminates the double D clutching as in case of constant mesh gearbox. So to avoid this double D clutching, in the next class I'll explain you what do you mean by double declutching. Okay, so here we can see here the G1 is called as the is called as the fork. Okay, and the F1 and F2 are the sliding hubs. Okay, and H1 and H2 are the frictional surfaces. So the clutch shaft is directly connected to the crankshaft. From there the speed is transferred to the gear wheel B, and then it is transferred to the gear wheel U1, and then it is transferred to the lay shaft. Here all the gear wheels on the lay shaft U1, U2, U3, U4, U5 are directly in mesh with the gear wheels on the main shaft, that are B, C, D and E respectively. So in order to get the speed according to the required speed, you can see here the sliding hub F1, which is present on the splined main shaft, is slided towards the left side. So when it is slided towards the left side, the frictional surfaces which are provided by H1 and H2, H1 on the gear B and H2 on the fork G1. So these frictional surfaces are synchronized and the required speed is obtained. Okay, so the speed, how the speed will be transferred here means, first from the engine to the clutch shaft, from the clutch shaft to the gear B, from gear B to the U1, from U1 to the lay shaft, and lay shaft to the U2, and U2 to the C, and C to the sliding hub F1, and F1 is moved toward the left, you are going to get the first gear. So similarly, if you want, sorry, it is a top gear. If you want the first and reverse gear, the speed from the clutch shaft is transferred to the gear B, then to the gear U1 on the lay shaft, and from U1 to the gear wheel U4 on the lay shaft, and from U4 to the U5 on the gear wheel, and U5 to the E, and E gear wheel E, we have a frictional surfaces R2 and a frictional surface R1 on the sliding hub F2. So when the sliding hub F2 is moved toward the right side, we are going to get the reverse gear. Okay, similarly, when the sliding hub F2 is moved toward the left side, we are going to get the first gear, that is the frictional surfaces P1 and P2 are synchronized here. When it is moved to the reverse right side, frictional surfaces R1 and R2 are synchronized, and we are going to get the reverse gear. When the frictional surfaces P1 and P2 are synchronized, by moving the sliding hub towards the left, we are going to get the first gear. So how the speed transfers here is, from the for example, if you take a gear 1 speed, the engine shaft speed is first transferred to the clutch shaft, then to the gear wheel B, then to U1, then to the lay shaft, and then to the U3, and then U3 to the D, and D to the P1, and P1 to P2, and P2 to the sliding up F2, and where F2 is fixed on the main shaft, and that speed is going to be obtained. So this is how the first gear speed is obtained. Similarly, if you want, suppose for the second gear speed, so the speed from the clutch shaft is transferred to the gear wheel B on the main shaft, and then to the gear wheel U1 on the lay shaft. That speed is transferred to the lay shaft, and from lay shaft to U2, gear wheel U2 on the lay shaft, and from that the speed is transferred to the gear C on the main shaft. And when the sliding hub F1 is moved towards the right, N1 and N2 are synchronized, and that speed is transferred to F1 and then to the main shaft. So this is how we are going to get the second speed. So if you want to go for the top speed or high gear, then this sliding hub F1 has to be moved towards the left side. So when it is moved to the left side, H1 and H2 gets synchronized. So whatever the speed that is obtained from the clutch shaft is directly transferred to the sliding up F1, and that speed is transferred to the main shaft. So this is how the synchronous mesh gearbox works. And that's all, student, for today's class. So in the next class, I'm going to explain about what is the use of overdrive, fluid flywheel, and torque converter. Okay, thank you.